What legend you want to play in Apex Legends can be a pretty tough thing to decide, but today I'm going to help you out with choosing your main legend, or better yet, a few legends to play. We are going to explain every legend's playstyle down to their abilities, the positives and negatives of every legend, their overall difficulty to use them, and if they are considered a meta legend. If you are watching this video in a future season, check out my pinned comment down below for any of the changes to the legends, so you can have a pretty good idea as to the changes. There's going to be a ton of things for us to discuss, and it's going to be a long one, so let's just dive right in. First up is going to be Season 6's legend, the Amped Modder, Rampart. Rampart's passive ability is the Modded Loader. This gives her a 15% larger magazine size for all LMGs and a 25% boost in reload speed for light machine guns. Her tactical ability is the Amped Cover. This is a wall she can place on the ground to help block doors, choke points, and just in general, set up shop in areas to help her win and control the match. The big thing with these amped walls is that they have a one-way type of barrier that allows anyone that shoots through this portion to deal a bonus 20% damage. And finally, her ultimate ability is the Emplaced Minigun, or Sheila. This is the minigun she can use to rain absolute terror down on enemies. The biggest pro for Rampart is going to be the fact that she is a superb legend at controlling areas. This is especially the case when she is inside or around buildings. In addition to this, the minigun can absolutely melt squads, but it does require a fair amount of awareness to use it effectively, as the spin-up time can be pretty tough to get down. The biggest con for Rampart is really going to be that it makes some players feel like they are immobile, and in a movement game like Apex Legends, this can be a tough thing to get past. Rampart is a slight hybrid legend with her mix of defensive and slightly offensive or aggressive type of play. However, playing Rampart aggressively will be pretty tough to do effectively, and it will take a more skilled player to do so. This is the case because Rampart does require a lot of emphasis on positioning, timing, and the overall ability to understand and engagement. It is worth saying that since Rampart's amped walls do boost damage, she makes a great legend to farm up damage with, and while most weapons will work on any legend, Rampart can definitely have a boost to the sniper or marksman users, since those amped walls are going to boost the damage by 20%. The skill to use Rampart is really not too high, but she also isn't a mega simple legend like some of the other ones. At the moment though, Apex Legends does favor movement and fast-paced action, which does mean Rampart is not a meta legend. If you really want to focus on ranked, or if you are looking for a solid defensive legend, Rampart is someone that you can consider. Second up is going to be Season 4's Synthetic Nightmare, Revenant. Revenant is a solid aggressive legend in Apex Legends that has a real emphasis on team play and approaching scenarios a little bit more tactically. Revenant's passive is Stalker, which gives him increased crouch movement speed and a near infinite climbing capability. Revenant's tactical ability is Silence, which will prevent enemies from using their abilities for a short amount of time if they do come in contact with his Silence orb. Finally, Revenant's ultimate ability is the Death Totem. This is a totem Revenant places on the ground that anyone can attach to, putting them into a death type of phase. During this phase, players only take health damage, and once their health does run out, they will respawn at the totem with half of their health intact and still their entire shields. This ability gives players the freedom to more or less make a free push on enemy squads, knowing that they will respawn at the totem. Revenant's full kit of abilities are extremely solid, but he can be tough for a solo player. The ultimate ability is a hard one to coordinate on your own, and without a full team taking full advantage of it, it will be hard to make effective pushes. That being said, Revenant's passive is one of the most slept on abilities in the game, and that higher climbing will allow you to approach fights in a unique way that many players will not expect. Overall, Revenant is more of an intermediate type of legend, and while he is a solid legend, he definitely isn't considered meta. If you are newer to Apex and you want to try experimenting with making some big pushes, then give Revenant a try. Season 10's Ambush Artist Seer is the next legend. He is one of the more purely recon legends in the game, as his entire ability set is really centered around gathering knowledge. Seer's passive is Heart Seeker. This gives him more or less a heartbeat sensor that he can use to track enemies' whereabouts, even through walls. Seer's tactical ability is the Focus of Attention. This sends out a cylindrical type of scan that shows enemies' whereabouts and will even show how much health they have left. When the ability does hit enemies, it will also briefly stun them, cancel any of their healing items they may be using, and even stop them from reviving their allies. And finally, Seer's ultimate is Exhibit. This sends out a dome that highlights enemies that are traveling inside of his dome. Seer's complete kit is really all about awareness. His ability to track enemies through walls at any time is an absolute killer move, as players have no idea they are being on his heartbeat. On top of this, being able to see players' health bars and cancel their abilities with the tactile is pretty incredible. While these abilities are really solid, The ultimate is fairly easy to destroy, and the tactical scan is pretty centralized, whereas a scan from a legend like Bloodhound will be a little bit better to gain more awareness of a larger area. Seer is a fairly intermediate type of legend to use, as he isn't too hard and he isn't too easy, and while Seer is a great legend, a legend like Bloodhound is a little bit more natural to play and will be a bit better suited to make some aggressive plays rather than Seer. Because of this, Seer is not quite a meta legend, but he is really a great legend for those looking for an alternate recon or scanning legend. Next is our second defensive legend, Season 2's Static Defender, Wattson. Wattson is one of the more interesting legends in Apex, as all three of her abilities build off of one another. Her passive is Spark of Genius, which allows her to hold 2 ultimate accelerants per inventory slot, and she can recharge her entire ultimate with a single accelerant. She also has a small passive shield regeneration of about half a shield per second. Wattson's tactical is the perimeter security, and these are fence nodes she can place on the ground and connect to defend and block off areas or buildings around the maps. And finally, the ultimate is the Interception Pylon, which will stop all ordnances that would land in its range, such as grenades or certain ultimate abilities like Bangalore's or Gibraltar's. Wattson's ultimate will also recharge the shields of anyone in range at a fast 5 shields per second, and this ultimate recharges her fence nodes at a much faster rate than the default 15-second cooldown. This allows her to set up fences a little bit faster. Wattson is incredible at holding up areas and blocking some incoming explosives from other legends. She even has a small element of team support with some healing through her ultimate ability. The biggest problem for Wattson is really that she requires a ton of setup and effort to use properly, and while she can be used aggressively, it's going to be a pretty tough thing to get down. Other defensive legends like Rampart or Caustic are more or less similar, and they really just require a single press of an ability to use and set up, while Wattson has to run around and place fence nodes down. Because of this, Wattson is a hard legend to use in Apex Legends, and is not really considered meta. Although if you are looking for a ranked legend, she definitely is a solid pick. Players that get Wattson down will feel really rewarded, and she's worth a pickup if you want a decent legend with a pretty high skill ceiling. Moving on, we have one of the OG unlockable legends, and this is the Toxic Trapper, Caustic. Caustic is one of the better hybrid legends in Apex Legends with multiple use cases for his gas. His passive is Nox Vision, which allows him to highlight enemies in his gas. His tactical is the Nox Gas Trap, which allows him to drop up to 6 total gas traps to lock down areas and deal damage to those that get close enough to them. And finally, the ultimate ability is the Nox Gas Grenade, which he can toss onto enemies to once again deal gas damage. Caustic thrives in both a defensive and aggressive nature through either using his traps to prevent pushes or using his ultimate grenade to force enemies out of cover. Because Caustic does have this hybrid playstyle, he really thrives in a lot of different scenarios, which means he is solid for both pubs and ranked play at pretty much any skill level. The biggest issue with Caustic at the moment would really be his larger hitbox, which at times can make him feel slow or even clunky to play. There are a ton of things you can do with his gas abilities, from blocking doors, gaining awareness, reviving players, or even using the physical trap as cover in a pinch. Caustic is a relatively intermediate type of legend in terms of his difficulty, and those that learn him and learn him well will be pretty well rewarded. In ranked, Caustic is absolutely considered a meta legend, but in pubs, he is somewhere more in the middle. Caustic is a great legend that everyone needs to consider using if you truly want a hybrid type of experience. Next up, we have Season 3's Surveillance Expert, Crypto. Crypto is one of the more interesting legends in Apex Legends, as his kit of abilities all have to do with one singular ability, his drone. His passive is Neurolink, which allows his drone to scan enemies for the squad. The tactical is that surveillance drone, a drone that he can fly around to scan enemies, look at banners to see how many squads are in range, pick up teammates' cards, instantly respawn squad mates at those respawn beacons, and instantly ping recon beacons, plus much more. Finally, Crypto's ultimate is the Drone EMP, which sends out an EMP that deals 50 shield damage to all enemies in range, and it will also destroy any traps such as Wattson fences or Caustic's gas traps. Crypto does have a ton of things that are going for him and his drone, as there's honestly a lot you can do with it, but the biggest drawback is that you do need to be stationary when you are in the drone. Even if you are stationary for a moment, you are still not helping your squad in a gunfight, which can be a huge negative for his playstyle. A good Crypto will be utilizing the strategy of aggressive EMPing as much as possible, and more or less just using the drone for quick recons of areas rather than staying in it for too long. Crypto is a solid legend for those looking to have an aggressive playstyle with that aggressive EMP, and for those that also want to have a little bit of the recon or a support type of play. At the moment, Crypto is really just not a meta legend due to his relatively odd playstyle and his reliance on a singular ability, the drone. Without the drone, Crypto has nothing and is just a person in the game. Those looking to pick up Crypto will need to constantly be on their toes, as you'll be hopping in and out of the drone quite often because he does require a very active and thoughtful playstyle. The difficulty to use him is going to be pretty extreme. Crypto may be one of the hardest legends in the game to use properly, but those that do get him down will feel pretty rewarded. From this is the OG unlockable legend, the Bamboozle King, the holographic trickster, Mirage. Mirage is absolutely one of the more interesting legends in Apex Legends, as there is truly no other legend quite like him. Mirage's passive is Now You See Me, and this gives him invisible reviving and respawning at beacons. His tactical is Psych Out, which lets him spawn a clone of himself to try and confuse enemies. And his ultimate is Life of the Party, which spawns a handful of clones to once again confuse his enemies. Mirage is truly the most deceptive legend in Apex Legends, with mostly an aggressive playstyle with a slight support role with that invisible reviving. Mirage really excels with his ultimate ability, as the set of clones can confuse enemies if used properly, and the best part about it is its lightning fast 60-second timer. The biggest problem with Mirage though is that experienced players will nearly always be able to pick out the real Mirage, which in some ways gives Mirage a skill cap or ceiling. Those playing more casually should have a great time with him though, and his playstyle of being deceptive and aggressive makes it for a really great time. Because the skill of Mirage in some sense relies on the skill of your enemy, he is one of the hardest legends in the game to use effectively, which does give him the extreme difficulty rating. Likewise with this, Mirage is definitely not a meta legend, but he is a blast to use and worth giving a try if you want something truly unique. Season's 8 Bombastic Explosives Expert Fuse is another solid legend players may want to consider using if they are looking for something a little bit more explosive. Fuse's passive is Grenadier, which allows him to hold 2 grenades per inventory slot, and he can launch them much further and faster than any other legend. His tactical is the Knuckle Cluster, which more or less gives him 2 charges of mini grenades that are really great at weeding out enemies out of cover and prevent pushes through choke points. Finally, Fuse's ultimate is going to be the Mother Load, which is a ring of fire he can launch onto the ground to trap and scan enemies that are caught inside of it. It will also do some massive damage if players walk into the fire and even slow them down. Fuse is absolutely an aggressive legend that emphasizes the use of grenades. Fuse has come a long way since his release, and one of the bigger things going for Fuse is going to be that tactical ability to use those clusters to force movement. One issue of Fuse though is his passive, which more or less relies on consumable items, grenades. Once you are out of grenades, then 1/3 of his kit does become useless. The difficulty to learn Fuse is not hard, and he's quite easy to pick up. As for whether or not Fuse is meta, it's going to be a soft no. He's certainly more relevant than a legend like Mirage, and he does have some usefulness, but all in all, he is just going to be an okay pick. If you love explosives, then there's going to be no better legend for you. If you are enjoying the video and or you want to support me, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. And if you want any more on any of the legends, we've done a master guide for every legend in the game, and a link to that playlist is in the description down below. Moving on, we have another day 1 legend, and this is going to be Gibraltar, the Shielded Fortress. Gibraltar is one of the better legends in Apex Legends, with a passive gun shield that blocks 50 incoming damage when he is aiming down sights. His tactical is the Dome of Protector, which is a 12-second bubble he can place on the ground to give himself and the squad some temporary cover. And his ultimate is the Defensive Bombardment, which rains missiles down from the sky and deals massive damage to those caught inside of it. Gibraltar is truly one of the best legends in Apex Legends due to his overall usefulness. Need cover? Pop a dome. Need to revive a teammate slightly faster? Pop the dome. Need to create separation? Pop the dome. On top of this, once you are in a fight, you do get a boost of 50 health from that gun shield, and you do take 15% less damage due to him being a fortified legend. Gibraltar is truly a mix of the aggressive, defensive, and a support type of legend. His biggest weakness will be his size, which once again will make him feel a little bit slower or a little bit clunkier. He may not be the most fun for pubs, but in rank, Gibraltar is top tier, if not the best ranked legend in the game. Gibraltar does have an extreme emphasis on timing, which rightfully will give him the difficulty rating of extreme to use him properly. He is absolutely a meta legend, and if you want a legend that has a big role in the squad, pick him up. Season 5's Translocating Thief, Loba is our next legend, and she is the queen of loot in Apex. Her passive is Eye for Quality, which gives her the capabilities to highlight both purple and gold loot through walls and bins. Her tactical is Burglar's Best Friend, which is a bracelet that she can throw to teleport herself, and the ultimate is the Black Market, which allows players to loot 2 items in its range and an unlimited amount of ammo. Loba is one of the only 2 support legends in Apex Legends, and she really shines with her Black Market. She helps the squad bypass one of the slower parts of Apex Legends, which is looting, and this will help accelerate players' skill as they can spend more time fighting and less time looting. Her bracelet is okay for teleportation, but really the premier ability is going to be that ultimate. She is an easy legend to pick up, and players that use her generally will always be geared for fights. The biggest drawback of Loba will be the lack of offensive tools in fights, and her passive becomes negligible after the early game. She is somewhere in the middle when it comes to being a meta legend, as she can be great and even has some movement in her kit, but overall there are better movement and aggressive playmaking legends in Apex Legends. Pick her up if you are looking to bypass some of the slower looting experiences in Apex Legends. This brings us to the Season 7 Gravitational Manipulator, Horizon. Horizon is all about using her abilities to really enhance her movement. Her passive is Spacewalk, which gives her increased in-air maneuverability, which will allow her to move around fluidly as she can't get stunned when jumping down to the ground. The tactical is the Gravity Lift, which allows herself and anyone in that lift to lift up into the air to help them rapidly take high ground or maneuver around the maps. She can even transport and knock teammates with this tactical ability. Finally, the ultimate is the Black Hole, which is a throwable device that will trap and suck up any enemies caught in its radius. Horizon is truly one of the best movement legends in Apex, and those that get really good with her lift will be able to excel in fights by using that lift to heal, to escape, and to just make big plays. If there is a weakness for Horizon, it's going to be the Black Hole, but even then, the Black Hole is still pretty good if used properly. The difficulty to use Horizon is going to be pretty hard, and it will require good movement, which generally only experienced players will be able to take full advantage of. Overall, Horizon is a killer meta legend that is a ton of fun to use. If you want a cracked movement legend, give Horizon a good go. The Professional Soldier, the OG legend Bangalore, is up next. Bangalore has constantly been a solid legend in Apex Legends, with a passive double time that gives her a speed boost when shots are sent close to her, a tactical smoke launcher that lets her smoke herself for cover, open areas, or teammates or enemy players, and an ultimate ability called Rolling Thunder that sends in rockets from the skies to blanket an area to once again create separation or open avenues for pushes. Bangalore is another legend that is truly a hybrid legend, as all of her abilities can be used aggressively, defensively, or even for support purposes. It is worth noting that her smokes are a little bit weak right now since there are a ton of scanning abilities in Apex Legends, but a Bangalore that uses those smokes with intent and smartly can really outmaneuver opponents in big ways. She's an easy legend to pick up, but I would say she's more of an intermediate type of legend to truly excel with. Likewise with a few of the previous legends, Bangalore's kind of in the middle of being a meta legend. She can have some moments of greatness, but with all those scans right now, she can be pretty tough. If you want a simple legend that can excel on the battlefield, give her a try. Next up is another OG legend, the Combat Medic Lifeline, a staple of Apex Legends. Lifeline is the second support legend to Loba, as she has a few neat tricks to help the squad out. Her passive is the Combat Medic, which allows her to revive 2 teammates at once with her drone, allowing her to deal some damage while reviving at the same time. The tactical is the DOC Heal Drone, which is a drone that she places on the ground to heal herself and anyone else that is attached to it. Finally, she can call in an ultimate care package every 5 minutes or so that is filled with shield cells, syringes, attachments, or armor upgrades. Lifeline is one of the most pure support legends in the game, and a good Lifeline can keep her team on their feet and really sway matches in a big way. Lifeline might not be as cracked as she used to be, but she is still a solid legend that is worth your time. She is absolutely one of the easier legends to start out with, and is similar to Bangalore in terms of being meta. She may not be the killing legend or the movement legend, but when stuff does start going wrong, you will be happy to have a Lifeline around. If you want to support your team with heals, give her a try. The Winged Avenger, the unique movement legend, Season 9's Valkyrie, is up next. Valkyrie has a ton of usefulness for all modes of Apex Legends, but starting us off is her passive VTOL Jets. This is more or less a jetpack that she can use to maneuver herself around. She also has a jet fighter type of HUD when she is flying around, allowing her to tag enemy locations. Her tactical is the Missile Swarm, which is exactly what it sounds like, a barrage of missiles that she does send out and will do a small amount of damage and stun enemies caught in it. For her ultimate, it is the Skyward Dive, which is more or less a mobile jump tower she can use every few minutes to rapidly transport herself and the squad around the maps. Valkyrie is one of those legends that has the complete kit of abilities, a stellar passive for movement, a clutch tactical to stun and weed enemies out, and an ultimate ability that lets you rotate all game long, which in turn will help you keep that action going and get higher kill games. Not to mention her ultimate is really great in sweatier matches where rotations can be tough. The only real con of Valkyrie is going to be her semi-vulnerability when she is using her passive jetpack, but as with everything in Apex Legends, it's up to the player to minimize the risk when you are flying around. Valkyrie is a fairly intermediate legend to pick up and has a lot of usefulness for the entire team. She is absolutely a meta legend, if not one of the best legends in the game, and she will be well worth your time for both pubs and ranked. Moving on, we have my personal main, the OG Robot Man, the Forward Scout, Pathfinder. Pathfinder is one of the simpler legends to play in Apex Legends that has an extremely high skill ceiling. His passive is Insider Knowledge, which lets him get a free zipline charge every time he uses a beacon. They also reduce the cooldown of every future zipline by 10 seconds. The tactical is a grappling hook that he can use to fling himself around the map to make sick plays or escape in big ways. And finally, the ultimate is going to be his zipline gun, which sends out a zipline that players can travel on to get height or just rotate around. Pathfinder's movement is next level in Apex Legends, which is the definitive reason why you would be using him. His ability to fly in, get some kills, and then escape out with that grapple is truly next level. The biggest negative for Pathfinder will be his relative size, which is fairly big compared to some of the other legends, and his passive ability is very simple and is almost non-existent. Pathfinder is an incredible aggressive legend and a great legend for those looking to push the bar in Apex Legends. The grapple is one of the highest skill ceiling abilities in the game, which gives him the hard to extreme difficulty to use, but there may be no more rewarding legend to play, and someone that gets that grapple down, it's just going to be so rewarding. If you want someone that is truly meta, give the guy a try. We now move on to the OG technological tracker, Bloodhound. Bloodhound is another one of the true recon legends in Apex Legends, but they also have a mix of aggressiveness in there, which makes them slightly more useful than someone like Seer. Bloodhound's passive is Tracker, which will let them see what has recently happened on the battlefield through a slew of unique icons for gunfire, knocks, deaths, ability usage, and much, much more. Their tactical is going to be Eye of the Allfather, which is their premier ability, and this lets Bloodhound send out a wave of scan in front of them to locate and highlight enemies for the squad. Finally, the ultimate is Beast of the Hunt, and this lets Bloodhound get increased scan usage when they are in this ability. Also, during the ultimate, everything turns black and white, letting them locate enemies with ease. Additionally, Bloodhound gets a speed boost when in this form, which is great to close gaps and make big pushes. Bloodhound is a solid legend, if not a top tier legend in Apex Legends, whose difficulty to use is quite easy, which makes them a really great beginner legend for anyone just starting out their Apex Legends journey. Bloodhound is really all about gathering as much information as possible before making plays in Apex Legends, and those that like to make smarter, more informed decisions will enjoy the OG meta legend of Bloodhound. Season 11's edition of Ashe, the Incisive Instigator, is another one of those hybrid-esque type of legends between being an aggressive legend with a small amount of recon for the squad. Her passive is Marked for Death, which lets her locate recently deceased enemies on the map. Additionally, she can ping death boxes to locate and ping enemies of those killers of those death boxes. Her tactical is a simple arc snare, which will bind and snag enemies for a brief moment, and her ultimate is Phase Breach, which will launch a one-way portal she can use to rapidly escape, take high ground, or make a push even into a building through a window. The ability to find recently killed players is quite nice, and it will allow you to get to the action slightly faster. Additionally, her aggressiveness with the ultimate is pretty fun, and if used properly, you can make pretty quick work of enemy squads. Ashe really is more of an intermediate type of legend to use properly because her ultimate is pretty difficult to use effectively, and one wrong placement of that Phase Breach portal can result in a quick loss. Because Ashe does not really do anything too unique, she is somewhere in the middle of being considered a meta legend. That being said, if you want to forego trying to find players to fight, she might be a good pick as you can see those death boxes on the map, which is pretty cool. One of the most iconic legends in all of Apex Legends, the interdimensional skirmisher, Wraith, is the next focus. Since the beginning of Apex Legends days, Wraith has always been a widely picked legend. Her passive is Voices from the Void, which will give her an audible cue when someone is looking at her, or if she is about to enter an area with something like a gas trap. Her tactical is Into the Void, which sends her into an alternate phase, and during these few seconds, she will take no damage and have a slight speed boost. And her ultimate is the Dimensional Rift, which is a portal players can take to transport across areas with safety. Wraith is an incredibly useful legend and is one of the best, if not the best legend in all of Apex Legends when it comes to her reset capabilities. Go into a fight, get a knock, tactical out, heal up, and then have another go. This flow of play lets her really excel in all forms of play and makes her an incredibly aggressive legend. The difficulty to use her is going to be fairly hard, as it does require a lot of skill and a good sense of timing as to when to use her tactical ability appropriately. Don't sleep on the portal though, as you can be wildly creative with it by using it to block doorways, body snatch players, or even have an escape route when you are trying to make a push. Wraith is one of the best legends in Apex Legends who has rightfully secured herself in the meta of Apex Legends. Season 1's high-speed daredevil Octane is another solid legend who has been well ingrained in the meta of Apex Legends for quite some time now. Octane is all about speed and really pushing the pedal down. He's got a passive health regeneration, a tactical stim that gives him a speed boost, and an ultimate launch pad that lets him fly onto enemies, for better or worse. Octane is truly an aggressive legend in Apex Legends, who is a pretty easy pickup with an intermediate level of skill required to use him effectively. Octane is truly all about making pushes with his stim and pad, and a player that can use these abilities appropriately will find a very free-flowing and natural playstyle that will reward excellent movement. Octane is definitely a meta legend, and a great one at that. The negative for Octane is going to also be his biggest advantage, and this is the speed capabilities of him. Octane often gets overextended and separated from his teammates because he has so much speed. Players need to absolutely take care when making pushes and be aware of how far they are getting away from his squad. Definitely give Octane a try. He's an absolute blast, and it shows it because he is one of the top picked legends in all of Apex Legends. Regardless of what legend you do choose, the biggest thing is to try and get attached to a few different legends. Playing 2 or 3 legends means you always have a few fallbacks if your main legend does get taken. If you ever want more content, or if you just want to interact with myself in the community, hop into our community Discord. It's also a great place to forego playing with randoms, which we all know can be pretty difficult at times. Be sure to sub to the channel for more content that is always on the way. Until next time, happy gaming, legends.